Good day. This is my reply on Pastor Gary Hamrick from the Cornerstone Chapel Ministries about the end times of Daniel, and I've got a different view. I even say that Daniel 12 is already fulfilled, but I will give you more insight on this. So let's have a listen to what he says, and then I'll give my remarks based on that.
Reference here to a king, but this king, as you see the description unfold, is really a metaphor for the Antichrist. And so in Daniel 11, verse 36, it says, "Then the king shall do according..."
Already the pastor is making a big mistake of looking at this king as a Antichrist, which of course is not true, because this very same king was the same king discussed in Daniel 8, which of course is Antiochus in the years of 167 BC to 164 BC. And I'll give more insight how I got to those dates. But even the same king in Daniel 11 is discussed, and the same king also in Daniel 12, if you read contextually. I will give you the reasons why. Do not miss the part where they explain in Daniel 8, because if you want to understand Daniel 11, you need to go back to Daniel 8. And Daniel 8 tells you about this king who is defiling the sanctuary. He's not destroying the sanctuary. What is important is to know that he's defiling the sanctuary. The prophecies jumps around, but in Daniel 9 only, from verse 26, it says that the sanctuary and the temple got destroyed. So to understand this, you need to know that the sanctuary is not destroyed in Daniel 8, 11, and 12. And I'll give my reasons. And the other date that needs to be remembered is the 2,300 days of Daniel 8, so that the sanctuary is cleansed. So first, the king defiles it, and then he cleanses, and then it's cleansed. But you must remember now, it's talking about at the end of Daniel 8 about the evenings and the mornings, not years. It's talking about evenings and mornings. So if you take the timeline of evenings and mornings, it's a half a day. Then you take the 2,300 days and you divide them in half, and that will give you that will leave you with approximately 3.5 years. Now this is also where Daniel 11 comes in and Daniel 12. So it's going to take 3.5 years for the sanctuary to be cleansed. Okay, so let's listen.
According to his own will, he shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall exalt himself above them all.
Okay, so it is known that Antiochus had created a god, Zeus, or something like that. He created a god. He didn't talk about the pagan gods. He didn't consider the Christian God or the Jewish God. He created his own God. And we all know, according to history, that Antiochus died without a sword or being killed. He died of natural causes and he got lost. This is the last verse of Daniel 11, which is also absolutely important that you know that part, because this interlinks with Daniel 12.
Now, if you'll jump to chapter 12, look at the first few verses with me. In chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "At that time, Michael," this is the archangel Michael.
I'm going to pause there for a moment for you to think about one thing. It says, it starts with, "at that time." Which time did the passage refer to? It was referring to the last passage of Daniel 11, because in the old days there were no passages and verses. So it says, at that time, it's a second passage within a book written without verses. So it's referring back to what it said at Daniel 11, the last verse, where the king is dying. Now we are looking at the timeline of 164 BC. So this king came in existence and starts to rule at 167 BC, and he dies in 164 BC. So now you need to stick with me, because between 164 BC and 167 BC, there's a 3.5 years span. And also, keep in mind that he placed the abominations of desolations and he caused the abominations in Daniel 8. And he caused the daily sacrifices to be taken away. And remember the 3.5 years that was spoken about.
Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt.
Okay. So it's telling us now at the year of 164 BC. This is happening. I know a lot of you have never heard this before. And I will also prove in a few points in Daniel 12, bringing it back to the same date. To understand the 164 BC, I'm going to go quickly through this. You start at Ezekiel 4. In Ezekiel 4, God said that Jerusalem will be besieged. To make a long story short, I'm going to take this quick. Go and read it. But it's going to be all for 430 years. We all know, according to history, at 597 BC, the besieging started. They sieged the city, Nebuchadnezzar and everyone, and that is where the siege started. So now you've got 597 BC minus 430 years in Ezekiel. You land on 167 BC. And if you want to go further, in Ezekiel 5, it said that at the fulfillment of this besieging, the killing starts. The killing starts then. Massive, massive killings of people. Now, just bear with me so you can understand what I'm trying to say. At the fulfillment of the siege in Ezekiel 5. Now, Ezekiel 5 and Ezekiel 9 is linked to each other. It says, at that time, now in Ezekiel 9, it says that they must go and defile the temple, start at the temple, defile the sanctuary, start with the killing, starts within the city, disperse the people to other nations. Now this is when God said it will start, at the fulfillment of the siege of 430 years. Now this is where you start to see where Daniel 12 comes in with the 3.5 years. Remember Ezekiel 9, the sanctuary is not destroyed, is defiled. And a lot of people is being killed. This is called the Maccabees revolt by the king Antiochus. So a lot of people were killed at that time. Now many will tell me, but listen, that was a judgment call. Because people that sleeps in the dust has been raised, and other people has been judged, and some people goes to everlasting contempt, and other people goes to heaven. This is like a book of life being opened, and everybody has been judged. But that's not so, and I will prove my point within Daniel 12 that links within all of these passages.
Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Look at the very last.
Everybody always reads about the time of the end. But I forget that there was a mention of this again by Daniel, and I hope he reads it so you can understand what end they are talking about.
Verse as we close out this book, verse 13. But you, Daniel, go your way till the end, for you shall rest and will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. And so,
okay, so the pastor conveniently forgot to mention that it was said, when will be the end of these wonders? The end of these wonders, the end of day, the end of days. The end of these wonders was about the specific vision. It was not about the end of days of earth and the second coming. If you go to let's just hear what he further says.
So it concludes here talking about going on your way till the end. We're going to talk today about the end times. But first, let's just pause again and pray once more as we start into our Bible study.
Okay, so at this moment I have stopped the recording for the pastor. And it's not that I am nasty. I'm just giving more understanding of what is being said so that you guys can understand where all this fits in. And I'm just going to quickly use Daniel 12 for example. So before we go on, it says there in verse 12, and at that time shall Michael stand up. Now this is Daniel 12, verse 11. Daniel 11 from the last verse where it said that the king has died. So at that time, 164 BC. Okay, so let's go to verse 11, and this is the most important verse of this whole book for you to understand what is being said. and from the time that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away. Now remember, this has been written about 500 before it happens, more or less. Maybe just before, about 400 years or 300 years before this happens. It says here, and from the time that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Remember the word set up. So the daily sacrifices and the abominations is set up on the sanctuary. Once that is set up at that time, okay, there shall be 1,290 days, approximately 3.5 years later, which of course is in 167 BC, according to Ezekiel 4, 5, and 9. To 430 years from 597 BC. 430 years on, we land exactly on 167 BC. 3.5 years later. Okay. 3.5 years later, according to verse 11, it says there will be 3.5 years from the time it's been set up in 167 up until 164 BC. It's like they are explaining the timeline of what's happening in Daniel 12 verse 1. These wonders. So they are explaining that from the setup of the daily sacrifices being taken away and the abominations has been put on the temple and the sanctuary, it's going to be 3.5 years. Now, I'm going to show you why I say the next part, and this is important because we need to know where this is taking us, because I wanna take you to the other verse that's important in Daniel 8. So you can see how Daniel 8 and Daniel 12 interacts with each other. Because in Daniel 8 it's evident what happens with this king. So I just want to go to the right verse. And okay, from verse 11. And this is important to be able to put together Daniel 12 and 8. And an house was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced, and it prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking and another saint speaking. How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifices and the transgression of desolations to give both sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So how long will this transgression last? This guy is asking. And the answer is given. Just hold on. Let me just go there quickly. And so where are we? Let me just find my place. And he said to me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, not destroyed, not nothing. The destruction only come in Daniel 9 verse 26 and 27, the desolations of it. Only cleansed. And this is where the part comes in, and this is where your 3.5 years comes in as well. And verse 26, and a vision of the evening and morning, which was told is true, whether thou shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. Guys, this is telling you it's a vision of evenings and mornings. It's a half a day. So he gives this in order so we can work the timelines out. And this king waxed himself great, even in Daniel 11, does the same thing, and in 12. Now people will ask me, how is it then possible that God already made a judgment before Jesus Christ did? And to understand that part, it is also very important to understand the next verses that Jesus came to give to us in, I will tell you now, that was in John 5. I'm just going to give you some insight about how to understand what is being said. A lot of people think that God has never judged before. A lot of people think that God gave all judgment to Christ. And I'm a little bit different on that, or my view. Okay. So, I'm gonna show you this. For as, John 5 from verse 21. For as the Father raises up the dead and quickening them, so the Son quickeneth whom he will. For the Father judges no man, but has committed all judgment unto the Son. So that means God now has committed the judgment issue to Jesus, which means that God has quickened the spirits before Jesus, as God quickeneth them. So even so do the Son. Okay, so at the moment Jesus says, when he received all judgment, that the Father is not judging anyone anymore in verse 23. Now I'm going to show you another verse. For verily I say unto you, this is now verse 24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my words and believeth on him that sent me, to believe in God that sent Jesus, have everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. This means if you hear Jesus and you understand his gospel and you accept him as the Messiah and you believe in God that sent him, you have everlasting life. But now interesting, Jesus takes the opposite in verse 25. That means also that you get everlasting life even before death already. The promise is already given to you by the gospel and everything that Jesus spoke about. But the next verse is important. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. Now, he's already taken the alive in flesh that now comes to hear the gospel and they live forever, or they get the promise. Then he talks about the dead in graves because there are two extremes. It's not spiritually dead he's spoken about. He's talking about those already dead in graves. And here's another secret for you to understand. 1 Peter 3 and 1 Peter 4 tells you when Jesus went down to the belly of the earth and spoken the gospel unto the dead in graves, in Hades, in hell, to give them the new eternal promise of the gospel, everyone that has died since the days of Noah, so that they can also be judged according to man in flesh. Which, of course, if this promise was for the whole world, taken from Israel and given to Israel and the whole world, that means that it's fair to say that the dead that is already judged before, that was caught in the graves, had to receive the gospel. And I want to just quickly add on to that. Matthew 27 gives us the answer when Jesus has risen. It says Jesus, when he died, there was a big earthquake. And because of the big earthquake on that moment, the graves went open and the veil was torn from top to bottom. And the dead in the graves, or the saints in the graves, came out. That's not a physical attribution, people. It was a spiritual coming out. These guys, their souls, they were caught into graves, the saints that didn't make it as 144,000 of God, chosen by God already in Daniel 12 at 164 BC, just before the Messiah came. That was an end. Those who didn't make it with God since the days of Noah, that was also caught in the graves. Those graves went open. And this is the other part that everyone misses. And they came out of the graves after Jesus' resurrection. There's a difference between being resurrected, and there's also a difference between rose from the dead. If you rose from the dead, you come back into life, into your flesh. And if you're being resurrected, you can either be resurrected to quickened of the spirit, the quickening, because God quickens who he wills, alive and dead, and now Jesus does it. Or you can be resurrected into hell and damnation. To understand this concept, you have to go to Revelation 5, explaining that no man in heaven was able to open the books, or on the earth or under the earth. There were already man in heaven. And to understand that there was man in heaven, because all of these dead souls that was caught in graves, that received the gospel and accepted the gospel as well. It's not to say that they were in graves that they will accept or not accept it. These were raised with Jesus and they went to the Father with Jesus on the Sunday morning, when he told Mary, I'm going to go to my Father. Go tell these guys, I will see them later. Don't touch me. This is the part where Revelation 5 plays out. That the host in heaven are singing, the tribe of Judah has prevailed, has redeemed us from the earth. He's prevailed. He's there for the first time. For the first time, a door is opening in heaven, and there's a throne coming down from God. And Jesus walks up to this throne for the first time and taking the books from the hand of God. He was the only one that can open it. No other man in heaven could do that. That proves to you that there's a resurrection that's already taken place. God has already chosen the 144,000 for himself from the 12 tribes of Israel. That's another deep discussion that I won't go into. Because a lot of people think there's a day of judgment that is going to come upon someone or everyone. There's a specific day of judgment. But Jesus says in Matthew 5 from verse 20, if you teach these least commandments, I came to fulfill all of these commandments and prophets. Now listen carefully. But he says, if you teach these least commandments, and he talks about them from verse 20 up until the end. If you murder, you are in danger of judgment. Why would Jesus say that? Or if you do this, you will be in danger of the council of the judgment. Because Jesus said in John 5, those who hear my voice have everlasting life. He did not say you're going to go through judgment. They did not say there's a judgment day for all. It's simply not true. Jesus then said in Matthew 5, you can't be in danger of judgment if you break the least of the commandments that he spoke about. All of those other things. He says the others I came to fulfill. But these least, if you break them, you'll be in danger of judgment. That means if you don't break them, there is no danger of judgment. Think about it, people. The one big judgment day that everybody is thinking about and are confused about is the one in Matthew 25. But Matthew 25 only pertains to the second coming. Because according to Luke, and I'm going to show you why I say this, because according to Luke 17 from verse 22 and down, he says, this day will be like Sodom, the same day. It is a one-day event that this coming is going to happen. He who loses his life for me will save it, and he who saves his life will lose it. In short, that means everybody will lose their physical life on this earth. Jesus is not coming to set up a kingdom. He's coming to destroy and take what's his. And if you read Luke 17 very clearly and contextually, you'll find that there are people that is taken and there are people that is killed. And I'm going to get to the last points. A lot of people talks about a tribulation period of 7 years or tribulation period of 3.5 years. But I will share all of these with you guys. I'll make it known what it means. But I believe that the tribulation even started since Jesus was on earth. The last days, the last 2 days of the 6,000 year prophecy. I'm just saying. It's just another way of looking at this. But remember, Revelation 6 from verse 12 is explaining to you the second coming also. What happens there? What is the sequence? First, there's a worldwide earthquake. The whole earth is shaking. And because of the shaking, now you start seeing comets and stars falling from the sky onto the earth. after that, the heavens scrolls open and the unseen becomes seen. What we don't see with the eye now can be seen with the eye. It becomes available to be seen by everyone. Now think about this. The earthquakes, the comets are falling. There is no rapture yet, because it tells you that the rapture happens upon the moment when the vision is seen. When you can see Jesus in the skies with his angels, and he sends out his angels, when the vision is available, then the rapture happens. Before that, there's an earthquake and all of those things happening, which means there will be people dying, Christians or no Christians. Doesn't matter. You will die. And this is another verse that has been misunderstood by people about Paul. Paul said immediately, we who are alive and remain will be caught up with them into the air. But it tells you that those that sleep in Christ, it's not asleep people in the sense that people were in the graves and waiting on that day. That sleeping is the people that has just died on the moment. The Christians that has just died when the comets came and the earthquake, and some people died, some people not. He says, no, we will not stop them to be raptured first. They're going to go up into the air first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up in the air with them. This means that our flesh will be left and we will go up. And the rest is killed, according to Luke 17. There's nobody that's going to survive this. Jesus comes to take to heaven, and it's the end of this life that we know. What happens after that, we don't know. Okay, guys, so this is my take. I hope you've learned something. I can give you much more. So please subscribe. Please subscribe, and if you feel like it, to donate something for me on my link within the description on PayPal, I'll appreciate that, because it takes time to make these videos. It takes time to do the research as well. So in order for me to get this channel going as much as possible, so everybody can learn something. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kindness.